All right, everyone. Well, I'm super excited to be adding Grand Canyon University here to the Connect platform. And we have Coach Austin Tomaz, the Assistant Director of Sports Performance, with us today. He's been there for a couple of years now, and he's recently taken over this internship program. And from what I hear from him, he's trying to revamp things and kind of open the doors to more students than necessarily just those that are at Grand Canyon at the moment, which sounds like an awesome opportunity for young professionals to get in there and see what it's all about. So, without further ado, I just want to hand over the mic to you, Coach, and let you introduce yourself. Maybe talk about your own development in the field and any mentors that you might have had along the way to help you get into this profession.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the introduction. So I actually initially started my strength conditioning experience post-grad at Texas Christian University. I interned under Zach Dakin. So you brought up mentors. He's been an awesome mentor of mine, obviously working with him as an intern directly underneath him, but also following his content, reading his books, things like that. He's been an awesome mentor. From there, I actually went into the private sector for a little bit. I was a performance coach at Michael Johnson Performance in North Dallas. So worked under people like Brian McCall, Lance Walker, who have been around for years and years. Learned a ton in the private sector and how to treat strength conditioning like a business a little bit. With that being said, I yearned to get back into the college setting. I love the team aspect of strength conditioning, so I knew I wanted to get back into the college setting and became a grad assistant at a small NAI university called Weber International in Central Florida. Worked my way up from a GA to a full-time coach to the director just because some people were leaving and I was kind of right place, right time. And then the Grand Canyon University opportunity opened up in 2022 and jumped on that. Just kind of wanted something fresh, something a little bit different, a new challenge for myself. So yeah, that's where I'm at currently.
Yeah, well, that's good. So it seems like you've kind of existed in that southern, latitude line and kind of working away back and forth, which is cool. Now we were talking briefly just before we started recording here about Weber International and going from that GA to leading the department over a number of years. Just again, like you said, happenstance of what was going on there and right time, right place, and sometimes that's a huge learning curve, right? To go from somebody who's got multiple supervisors above them, essentially directing them to do what they need to do, to now you're the person on top of the on top of the totem pole, kind of flipping the script. But I bet you learned a ton, even though I'm sure it was a somewhat of a stressful time, especially an NAIA with a ton of sports. But good for you, because obviously it laid a foundation for you to be confident to move on to a position like you are in now. So that's great. So let's get stuck into the weeds here with Grand Canyon University and what you're establishing there. In terms of just painting a picture for any young coach who's watching this video who's interested in GCU, what might a Monday or a Thursday look like in a typical semester in the weight rooms there, out on the practice fields? How are they going to be integrated? Just paint us a bit of a picture of that.
Yeah, absolutely. What I've tried to do is shift into certain time blocks that you are assigned. So your availability kind of dictates what shift that we will offer you. So we go from 6 to 10:30, 10 to 2:30, 2 to 6:30. But the idea is that you are in that time block all 5 days of the week. That allows us, since most of our teams train at a pretty consistent time, that way we can assign you as the primary intern for a coach with their primary sport. So for example, if you're able to have that 6 to 10:30 slot, then, and you always are able to work with men's soccer, then you were my primary intern and men's soccer is your primary sport. That way, one, you can learn their names. One, you can see the training every single day. You can see the modifications every single day. And then, like you said, even coming out to practice, sometimes if I need assistance, if we're doing speed work, if we're doing conditioning pre or post practice, you are my kind of point person to come out for that group. With that being said, obviously, you're not just going to be working with one sport. It's whoever is within that time block, but we try to pair you with one coach so that you are getting accustomed to kind of their routine. We love when It's like, okay, well, it's Thursday. That means they're doing change direction. I walk out, the intern already has it set up. So they can kind of figure out the routine of that training for that specific sport. But like I said, it's a 4.5 hour time block. We understand it's unpaid, so we're not trying to keep you here all day. We have 2 interns right now that are postgraduate, so they get their hours in, but we allow them other times to find a job somewhere else. So there's being in Phoenix, big city, there's a ton of opportunity, and we can kind of help guide that paid or part-time paid position somewhere. I think one of them, she's teaching gymnastics and dance, and another one, he's a bouncer at a bar. It's like we can find opportunities where we get it. I was there too. We need to find some type of income for you. So we're not going to expect you to be here from 6 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. You're going to be exhausted. So we're trying to be as reasonable with that, as accommodating as possible.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. And actually, it's good. One, it's good to hear that, and two, it's good to see that a number of internship coordinators now are recognizing that, because a burned out intern coach within the first 5 weeks is a disengaged one, and is one that doesn't really learn well or contribute at a high level. So it's great that you kind of set that out from the beginning. Say when you're here, you're 100% here, and then when you're not, you can be off doing your other stuff. And you're absolutely right. Well pointed out that I'm sure there are plenty of opportunities in Phoenix to be able to make ends meet if they need to do that, because as you and I know, when you're young and you don't have much free cash flow, it's kind of tough sometimes. But yeah, being in a big city is definitely a bonus there. Good stuff. Now tell us about like the semesters in general, right? Because I know like a fall versus a spring versus summer can be slightly different when it comes to intern coach responsibilities or how many teams might be on campus to see. So maybe paint us a bit of a picture of like how one might differ from the other, or maybe how like a summer intern, I don't know if they do this at Grand Canyon, my summer intern might continue on to the fall perhaps, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we don't have football at Grand Canyon University, our summer is pretty slow. If you go to a larger school with football, they'll pretty much be there the entire summer with small breaks within. So a full summer is primarily, it's going to be, end of May till end of August. We're a little bit unique. So we won't have any teams that are actually training as a full team until July. And that's just our fall sports: men's soccer, women's soccer, and women's volleyball. Our goal, kind of like you had mentioned, is that we get you through July through August, and ideally you stay for the entire fall semester. So if you're allotted that opportunity, you're kind of a step ahead, because we will also just take in additional people in the fall, because in the summer we don't need as many. Let's say we take 2 interns, we kind of want to preface that during the interview process that we'd like you to stay up until that December end of the fall semester, and which will only help you kind of springboard you above the other interns, because you've already been here for 7, 8 weeks. So that's kind of our goal. And of course, if they do a good job and we want them back and they're willing to stay through the spring, we have a current intern that's been here 3 straight semesters. I know everyone's situation is a little bit different. But if you do a good job and we want you back and you're willing, we can always push that to the spring. But January kind of restarts that. So we'll get a new batch of interns in January, and then a new batch of interns in September. But ideally, to start in July, that 1, 2, maybe 3 interns that we start with, they carry on through December.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And you kind of touched on it there, in that because the summer semester kind of starts a bit later in that July kind of time frame, it's not really long enough to be able to develop those young coaches sufficiently. If someone is coming in July and then have to leave in August, it's a short time frame, so you can't really get through the curriculum and help add value to them as much as you'd like. So tell us about that coach development in general. Tell us about the curriculum that you have in place, the kind of methods maybe that you might use to help these young coaches establish themselves as more credible and confident coaches in the knowledge that they have, but then also their skill sets. So how do you develop that?
Absolutely. So on the knowledge side, kind of like what you talked about with our curriculum, we essentially treat it like it was a course in undergrad. So we meet twice a week. Probably 30 to 40% of them are more hands-on, but a lot of it is in the classroom, as if you were taking, strength conditioning 101. What's unique about us is we kind of do a flipped approach. I've seen a lot of intern curriculums. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, indifferent. It's just different from how we do it, where you'll start with kind of the X's and O's of like, okay, these are the sets and reps you want for hypertrophy, power, strength. And then he's like, oh, we should teach how to, for sprinting, what drills we should do for acceleration, top end speed, what drills we should do for this. We just flip that and have a larger, broader approach at the beginning. So I'm trying to teach concepts based on energy systems from a large, bird's eye view, because at the end of the day, I can explain to you sets and reps for resistance training. You can figure that out in a day. But I want you to understand why this type of lift matches up with this type of speed, and this type of lift matches up with this type of conditioning, and how the entire week goes, but then how the entire year goes.
Mm-hmm.
So looking from a larger, because I mean, right now we're about halfway through. We just started talking about like volume intensity of resistance training. We do the front end side of a larger picture, understanding general concepts, but then start connecting data. So you're gonna get a bunch of data points from your undergrad, from the reading, the podcast that you listen to. We're trying to start off the first half of the semester where you start connecting those instead of adding more data points. I want you to be able to connect what you've learned with the knowledge you have already in your head, connect that. Then we can start getting a little bit more specific with the X's and O's of speed, power, resistance training, conditioning, but understanding when we should put things, what emphasis we should have at what time of the year. Just more of a broad approach is our goal.
Yeah, cool. No, you're absolutely right. A really good point in that. Often, and even still to this day, I think I'll have to admit it, but certainly when I was a young professional, and I'm sure young coaches listen to this will probably agree as well, is like a lot of your knowledge is somewhat siloed. You have your resistance training knowledge base, and then you have your aerobic development knowledge base, right, and your weekly planning. But yeah, how do those things all talk to each other? How do they interact? How might one influence the other, either positively or negatively? So yeah, absolutely. Putting the theory into an applied environment and understanding how it might work. And it's great that you're kind of teaching that applied knowledge in the background, and then they can go out there and they can see it. They can kind of put it together like, oh, we talked about that, and now I can see it playing out in real life in front of my eyes, which is great. To involve them in that process of learning is excellent. Very cool. Now, you mentioned you had a couple of intern coaches who were progressing from one semester to the next. They've been with you for a couple of semesters, and I presume you've had maybe one or two of those in the past. Maybe talk about a couple of those more successful intern coaches that you've had. What were they like when they're with you that you think made them successful, and where have they moved on to now?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a successful intern, they initially start being ready for the task, whatever that task may be, and always up for it, where it's, hey, I'm going to figure this out. We go through this small anecdote. It's called Message to Garcia, which essentially means figure it out. There's going to be certain tasks you may not know how to do, but that's the reason I'm delegating it, because I don't want to have to deal with it. So figuring out, oh, the force plate crashed. I need you to just figure out how it works. Like, hey, we need to find space for we got a shipment of protein shakes in, but we don't have space in the fridges. Okay, I need you to figure it out. We want somebody that's a problem solver. With that being said, the one two come to mind. One's our current GA, so I think he had 2 full semesters of an internship with us. He kind of rose to the top of that class of interns. He kind of lived all of those soft skill attributes that we're looking for, and we offered him the ground assistantship position. Another one comes to mind. He's been here for 3 semesters. He started last summer, and every single time at that end of the semester, he's like, hey, I'm still looking for a grad assistantship, but I'm not ready yet. Can I stay another semester? It's like, absolutely. So starting in June, he has a grad assistantship at Southern Miss that's going to be starting. And we basically made it so our new interns now, it's like, hey, if you have a question, go talk to him, because he knows top to bottom what our expectations are. And kind of like what I mentioned before, he's anticipatory. So he'll check out okay, what is women's volleyball doing today? He checks it out. He's like, oh, I need these cones set up. He goes in. So our women's volleyball sports former coach doesn't even have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. So anticipating what's going on, and that's ties into is like, we want you to be the sole intern or the primary intern for a specific group. You should know the ins and outs before that group gets here. You should know exactly what's going on. And if there is something where it's like, oh, hey, there's not court space, figuring out a solution. Mm-hmm. And then finally with that, we don't want interns who just think it's cool to wear a logo on their chest. I've had a lot of talks with current interns and peers and things like that. It's like I want a higher saturation of quality people in this profession to gain a little bit more respect. Um, there's always that salary talks that comes out, and people are frustrated about the low salaries. But well, if we have higher percentages of quality strength conditioning coaches out there, it's going to be easier to push value. So I don't want you to come in. It's like, hey, I need an internship. I need a couple hours for a class. I'm just checking a box. And I want you to come in here expecting to be the best intern, then the best GA, then the best full time, then the best director. That's kind of our goal. We want you to come in here and like strive for excellence. I'm more willing to pour into you, pour into the knowledge I have, give you resources and things that I don't have, if I know that you are constantly trying to take a step forward and become the best strength conditioning coach you can be. Those that was like, oh, it's cool, I get to wear a GCU shirt and it's like show all my friends, like, yeah, there's definitely perks to the job, but understand the field, understand what you're getting yourself into, and understand there's going to be a lot of grunt work you're going to have to do to get to where you want to be. And if you're okay with that and you still want to push forward, let's roll.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Yeah, no, that while that logo is obviously important and near and dear to our hearts, it kind of fades into the background pretty quickly once you realize, what your day-to-day is going to be like. But yeah, that's great. You obviously identified a number of things there that you're looking for in incoming intern coaches, being a self-starter, being a problem solver, anticipating what's going on during the day, being someone who looks to strive to be the best they can be and looks for, constructive feedback rather than just being kind of average Joe. So that's great. When it comes to applications that are going to come to your mailbox, and you're opening maybe a cover letter or a resume, what do you think outside of those more soft skills that you've just spoken about? What do you think is going to pique your interest when somebody crafts an application to you and to come and work at GCU? What are you kind of looking for? Knowing that obviously there's a lot of these coaches are going to be younger, greener, they might not have experience, but what are you hoping to read when you open that email or cover letter?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a coach, one on kind of the more behind the scenes or more administrative stuff, like already have it scheduled or already planning to schedule their CSCS.
Right.
So it's not a requirement for us to have it, but having somebody's like, hey, I already know I have this test scheduled in a couple of months and I'm studying for it every single day. That already shows it's like you're not just checking a box off, you're wanting to get into this field. So that's a big one, like an anticipated CSCS date. I would say, solid question. Don't be, it's like I don't need to read a novel, but also I don't want it to be very robotic either. It's like, oh, I'm a very hard worker and I'm excited to have this position. Hard work's kind of an expectation, excited is kind of the expectation. So something unique about you. So, yes, of course, there's going to be me putting on my coach hat when I'm talking with you and I'm your intern coordinator, but it's like, I want to kind of learn a little bit more about you to see if you're going to fit with the staff and the other group of interns. If you can somehow portray your personality a little bit outside of the resume, because I'm gonna, like you said, they're going to be very green. It's yeah, you should have completed your undergraduate. I can kind of guess what courses you've taken in your undergraduate. Hopefully your GPA is solid. It was solid enough to graduate, but that's not going to be a higher or not higher. But if we can find out a little bit more about who you are as a person, and see it's like, okay, they can get along with the staff. They're going to be somebody we enjoy being around when I'm not, Coach Austin, intern, whoever, or, kind of when we're in the office after the session and we're just kind of talking and getting to know each other. It's like, I want it to be somebody that's enjoyable to be around. I know it's not the easiest to portray in a cover letter, but of course, put, previous experiences. If you've done volunteer work, it's like, even if it's not directly related to college athletics, like, hey, I help coach a Pee Wee baseball team, whatever that may be. If you've been around athletes, you've been around people, and you're trying to continue to grow your skills of coaching, I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, love to hear it. No, you're absolutely right. It's a relationship at the end of the day between a mentor and an internship coordinator and the young coaches. So yeah, let's see what you're about before you get here and give us something kind of interesting to speak on. That's great. Well, Coach, I really appreciate your time here and the efforts you're putting into making this profession better and bolstering the internship program at GCU. Obviously, if anyone's watching this video now or in the future and are interested in the internship program at Grand Canyon, then obviously you can see all of the information on this webpage here, and as well as all the application materials below that are requested, as well as the deadlines by which to apply. If you have any further questions, I'm sure Coach Tomaz here would be very willing to receive any questions via email prior to submitting applications. But once again, Coach, thanks so much for your time, and I really hope this page brings some high quality candidates to GCU and to the field in general. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I love the entire setup of the webpage. I was actually just introduced to it a couple weeks ago. A former professor of mine where I did my undergrad, he asked if my internship was on this webpage. I was like, I had never even heard of it. He told me about it. And I was like, this is incredible. So I know I emailed that to you, but I want to say it to your face, like how much I appreciate all the intern coordinators. I'm sure appreciate this because you're absolutely right. It is frustrating to find internships and make sure everything's in a row, and you're doing an awesome job at keeping that organized. So we appreciate it.
That's awesome.